the Labour leader and chief Remainer, has been planning for years to take Britain back into the EU's orbit. It has been several years in the making, but Sir Keir Starmer finally got his wish this week as he frog-marched Britain into a miserable new era of meddling Brussels rule. With a stroke of a pen, the Labour leader ensured a return to European Union regulations and interference which many hoped had been consigned to the dustbin of history. The grinning Prime Minister proclaimed his new reset deal a win-win as he stood alongside European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen during this week's UK-EU summit. The Daily Express should have been there inside London's historic Lancaster House to witness what critics have described as Sir Keir's Brexit surrender. But we were denied entry, refused accreditation due to limited capacity for an event that was attended by scores of media outlets from across the UK and the continent. Kel surprise! It is somewhat ironic that the newspaper which led the victorious campaign to get Britain out of the EU, led by the late political journalist and politician Patrick O'Flynn, who died on Tuesday, was not given the opportunity to scrutinise the Prime Minister. There will be other opportunities. This was the first of what will become an annual event and shows that Sir Keir has no plans in stopping. On Monday, the Labour leader, who backed Remain, then campaigned for a second referendum to undo the Leave vote, agreed to restart payments to the EU budget which could run into hundreds of millions of pounds a year. And, to the fury of Britain's beleaguered fishermen, he caved into French demands to allow access for EU trawlers until at least 2038, more than 20 years after the public voted to take back control. The agreement also paves the way for a youth mobility deal which could potentially grant 80 million young Europeans the right to live and work temporarily in the UK. Unsurprisingly, Sir Keir's reset deal was met with a furious backlash. Critics said he had been stitched up like a kipper by Europe as his sellout for smoother trade will crush the UK fishing industry, drive up immigration and cost taxpayers millions. Nigel Farage said the Brexit betrayal sticks two fingers up to the 17.4 million people who voted to leave the EU in 2016. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch said the deal takes Britain back to the past as rule taker from Brussels. While former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who was one of the main architects of the Vote Leave campaign, was typically colourful in his criticism, lambasting Sir Keir as the orange ball-chewing manacle gimp of Brussels. Sir Keir Starmer said the reduction in trade barriers would boost the UK economy by £9 billion a year by 2040. The PM claimed it would result in lower food prices at the checkout by making trade with the EU cheaper and easier. And he said an agreement on the use of passport e-gates could ease queues for British travellers, although it was not clear when that might start. Ms von der Leyen said the deal provided a roadmap for even close relations between Britain and the EU in future. For their part, both Mrs Badenoch and the Reform UK leader both pledged to scrap the deal if they win power at the next election.